out of it. So this is a challenge after our component sprint. So you have to include data binding, input, output, all, including the last topic, library and publishing. So all those together, there is a challenge. And the word is not new to us. Reusable masonry layout. Do we come across on this layout?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll show you. In our HTML CSS print, we have this newspaper layout, masonry layout. You remember 6 columns. As soon as if I display this print, what are all the points comes into your mind?
There were 6 divisions.
So very first point is
Margin.
There were 6 sections.
column. I can say column count. I gave 6. So it has divided into 6 part. What else? What else? Think in CSS point of view.
Page align, ma'am.
Margin.
Margin.
Gap between the
Padding.
Is it padding is required?
Ma'am, float.
Sorry.
Very good. So float property.
Position.
Position. Come on, look into this masonry layout.
Ma'am, overflow auto.
What is this we used to call?
Gutter, ma'am.
Flex.
Space between columns.
Padding.
margin.
Margin.
The gap between one column and another column, you can see that space.
Gutter.
And we filled with its background color and this column. And we divided into as many number of cells. In first column, I have 3, and then 6, and then 4, it continues. But just look into the properties which is required. If I give column count as 8, we will be getting 8 column count. All right. So these are the things we came across on our course 8. Slight change. It's the same thing you have to be implemented in Angular. Listen carefully. Create reusable masonry layout component. So they have divided into 3 tasks. So task 1, task 2, task 3. If you noticed, the first task is masonry layout component. We will be creating a component. So that component, we are going to fill the content, reused. So the first task will be reused in task 2, and the task will be reused in task 3. So whatever the layout we created in task 1, according to that, notes, text will be updated. Here, image will be updated. As a front-end developer of so-and-so company, the first task is to consume this grid layout. And you have to publish. Okay. So task 1, consuming masonry grid component in Keep app. All right. Let me get into one by one. See, the task 1 is you have to consume masonry grid component in Keep app application, develop, test, publish your component to NPM registry, and consume that in ImageGram. I think, Geeta, it shuffled. Task 2 should be task 1, typo error.
Yes.
So task 1 is
develop this one.
So task 1. So you need to develop, test and publish Angular component of NPM registry. What we need to develop is this layout, this masonry grid layout structure. Task 2 and task 3 are reusing. So task 2, you are consuming in your heap app application. We are consuming in our ImageGram application. We will create a library component and we will reuse the library component in task 2 and task 3. So let's see what to be do in our layout. So what we need to do in our layout, we will create a layout and we will give all the styles and you will have your content. And the content needs to be dynamically updated on your other 2 tasks. So let me get into task 1. Again, I'll repeat, task 1 is creating a library and the library should consist of a component. The component should have this layout structure. And this layout structure, we will push the data in task 2. Here we will push the image in task 3. Will it be okay? Let us go one by one. So first task is to develop masonry grid container component that gives flexibility to input text. Text is our task 2, image is our task 3. So we need to publish this library, whatever you have created a layout in our registry. See, masonry grid layout is a type of grid with set of columns. Fixed column width remains same. So nowhere we changed column width, we changed only height. Yes. The masonry container divides in a page into columns. So my page will be divided into column. In this column, I can fit content or I can fit my image. So masonry is a type of grid with set of columns and fixed column width. It divides the page into column and places all the items under it. Masonry layout is one of the most popular layout today. We will use everywhere. Most of the newspaper alignment is masonry. Masonry layout gives you flexibility required for the page. What are all the inputs it will take? We need to pass number of columns, column width, total width, gutter. What is a gutter? Gap between 2 elements in layout. Nothing is new to us. We are familiar with this. Only thing is creating in an Angular as a library and publishing is new. That is also not new for us. So create component project library. We need to create a library with respective modules we need to add. We need to create and add masonry grid component to the component module, build, test and publish. I'll give you a sample demo on the same. So it would be helpful for you in continuing this challenge. So what is the step? 1, we need to create the layout. So I'm not going to create a library. I'm going to create component only. Guys, are you with me? Shall I proceed? Have you get into the task 1? Please pay attention. You can do this. I'll not take some maximum of half an hour. Task 1 is clear. I will show you a sample to create a layout. Anything you want to discuss? I'm not. Shall I continue? Anything
Yes,
you want
ma'am.
to add a
Yes,
point?
ma'am.
See,
Ma'am,
I
continue.
just finished my task one, and I want to give a sample because I have not introduced this dynamic loading the content, NG content, styles. All right. So I'll create a layout, then I'll proceed to task 2. So let me create a layout. I'm creating as a component, you have to create as a library. Generated. So I have created a layout component, and let me call the layout component in my parent. So let me go to layout component. So let me have my div, and I will have some 5 paragraphs. So you remember in our sprint, we have decided our gutter column with everything on CSS. So we can able to achieve CSS and see. For sure, we have to provide number of columns, column width, gutter, total width, and everything. So I want to use this library in my task 2 and task 3. In my task 2, I may have 20 content. In task 3, I may have 10 images. My 20 big paragraph needs to be fitted on my layout. And some 10 images or 25 images needs to be fitted. So number of paragraph, number of content on a keep note, and number of images to be decided by my child component. Sorry, parent component, where it calls this library. So what we can do? So I cannot able to fix. I can able to fix the column count, but number of elements needs to be decided at my parent component, depend upon the content it has. So if I want to pass some data between parent and child, how we will pass? By the way, this is child. Child needs to get an input from parent. How can we pass the information?
Entry model.
It's no. NG model story is totally different. See this
Input.
column count and column width, everything needs to be decided by parent.
At input.
Okay, listen. Very good. You yeah, I received the answer, but again I'm repeating the task. So I have 2 tasks. So this is our task 1. Task 1 is our layout library. This is our task 2. Task 2 is our, keep note. And task 3 is our image graph. So here we will be displaying the content. Here we will display the image. Got it? The content will be there. So whatever the data I want to display on Keep Note, it is there in a Keep Note, and the images will be there in an imagegram. So technically we call this as parent component. All of you agree? My parent component is gonna to called my child component, which is my layout, grid layout. Grid layout. By the way, it is library. So I need to develop and publish. Is this clear? If I want to pass the input from parent to child, so how we will pass? So I may pass 5 columns, number of columns. Here I may pass 3 columns. So if I want to pass from parent to child, so what is the functionality we discussed to pass the data from parent to child?
Property binding.
Property binding, interpolation, two-way binding are between template and TypeScript component. I'm talking about one component to another component.
Input.
And output.
The functionality, the data can be shared between template to your class is different. My question is from one component to another component. What? You got the question and you got the answer? See, the same topic we were been there for last 4 days. Have you understood this task, 3 tasks and parent component and child? Or I will give you a time. Okay, let me complete all the 3 tasks rolling out. See, I'll go to task 2. In task 2, we need to download and install the task 1 masonry grid, and you need to modify as per your Keep Note. So Keep Note is a text-based note that will be synchronous with whichever the application based on work. It has a masonry layout with individual grid and whatever the user is giving the input. So we have Keep Note app, application has been provided. Install the package. You need to install. Once if you publish, you need to install with the npm install whatever you have published. So this library will be rendered on your task 2. So in your component, there is an array. I will show you. The array consists of node title and node content. You go to your application. It consists of, can you see? In our app component, in our task 2, we have a nodes array. Can you see title and content?
Yes, ma'am.
So they have provided the data. So what you need to do is, you need to fetch this content. It consists of nodes array. The application should add a component that uses add note with title and content details. Content needs to be placed on your grid layout. So my node array can have some to attend data. Those 10 needs to be placed. So parent needs to pass the number of columns. All right. Where I am in 7th point. The app component should have handled submit event emitted by add and push the nodes to existing array of nodes. Provide proper inputs for the component can be used in Keep Note. Keep Note is my parent component. I need to pass the inputs to my child. So my child can be layout accordingly. See, I cannot create a layout with fixed set of rows and columns. It needs to depend upon my parent. So parent needs to pass the input. Here, based on the array, the nodes when you are displaying should arrange in the masonry layout based on number of column with layout and gutter. Gutter we have to provide. So here you need to display this nodes array, the content. If I go to task 3, in task 3, so we have an application, you need to again install task 1 library. So here it consists of images data. There we have a node array, here we have an image. Each image contains image URL. The image needs to be arranged themselves on masonry layout based on number of column with whatever the values. So they have provided with images. You can see some 32 images are there. See, they have provided an images array, but this time it is not a content, it is an JPG image. So instead of content, the images needs to be placed on your masonry layout. So my task 1 needs to get the input from task 2, keep note and imagegram. That is why nothing is fixed. So if you want to pass the data from parent to child and child needs to capture, we need to use @InputBound property. And we have to include in your TypeScript with this decorator and all those. So anything you want to discuss, you want to clarify on your understanding, you go ahead before I'm proceeding. Nothing is big, I can say. That is for sure.
Ma'am. Parent to child is @input decorative is using, and child to parent it is using output.
No, here you will give the structure alone. So you will call this layout library in your parent based on the input you are passing. Actually, here the input is an array. So array count, the structure will be realigned.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
There is no output.
Okay, ma'am, I understand.
Okay. For example, I drew this style, no, based on this structure. Right. If my parent component sends, for example, some 7 content. So my structure will be adjusted according to that. For example, in task 2, I have 6, 7 data. Here I have only 5 data. My structure needs to be aligned accordingly.
Ma'am, do we need to divide the structure evenly?
That I'll tell you. I'll do it in a demo sample, so that you will get better understanding of this requirement.
Hello, ma'am.
Moreover, this NG style I haven't taught you, and the content needs to be loaded based on the data I am passing. It's not static, it's dynamic loading the content.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, in this project, in first task, we're preparing library, correct?
Yes, correct.
And then publishing.
Correct.
For second and third task, is it necessary to reinstall or we can use that library?
Task 2, task 3 is 2 different projects. In both the project, you need to install the library.
Okay, that means we have to prepare
All.
separate projects for this second and
2 project you will install.
Okay.
And after installing, you remember, we will call that layout. If it is grid layout, I will call grid library and I will pass the data. See, this is what we did yesterday. Guys, yesterday you remember we created what? So Jitesh created a library. And what we did, after he published, we installed his library. And what we did in the second step,
Import the module.
We
we have
passed
added the
model.ts.
in app module.ts, we added that module of his. And what is the third step? We have included the selector in our component. So likewise, if I include the component, by the way, I need to pass. If I want to pass the data, here I need to pass. Don't worry, I'll show you a demo.
Ma'am, can we use the previous library which we created? Or
You
to
need to
create a
create
new
new
library.
one based on the requirement. Here I will pass column count, so and so. Column count is 6. Here I may call by passing column count as 8. All right. So I will continue with my demo, but I'm giving you a break of some 10 minutes and another 2-3 minutes for settle down with the question. Then don't worry, I will create one layout and I will create one child component, a sample demo. And you need to do it twice and you need to pull your arrays. Will it be okay? You will get better understanding. So don't feel vague or this is what the application. We can't get YouTube just like that. So there were a lot of work behind the applications. Okay, so enjoy whatever, whether if we are in front end, user interface, or after 10 days, if we are in business logic, enjoy. So we are developers. We should have a craze on developing all those things. All right. I'm announcing a break of 10 minutes. See you at 4:30.